Hello there, everybody, and welcome to the SendouQ Season 1 finale. My name is K-Bot, and I have not watched Splatoon in about a month and a half. I am joined by Nox. Nox, how you doing this morning?
I'm doing pretty good. Excited to get into these games. Excited for the next season of SendouQ to start, I believe, tomorrow.
Yes, SendouQ Season 2 is starting tomorrow, but first we've got some unfinished business in Season 1. 12 teams have qualified for a double elimination playoff bracket, and it starts here with Prestige versus Bet being the first matchup that we'll be watching on stream. And I think this is interesting because in terms of skill levels, Docs, we've got a lot of teams that are incredibly high level, which is the nature of the beast, right? We want these teams to participate on the ladder, and so the best teams ended up getting into this 12-team playoff, and I think it's going to set up for a lot of interesting scenarios here, because this is one of these opportunities where in a game where we don't get a lot of majors so often, this is kind of another shot at all these teams getting a chance at one another in a competitive setting.
Yeah, it's definitely a very prestigious bracket. A lot of big names in here. Not really any names that aren't big. There's no random pickups for once, which is great.
You said it was a prestigious bracket.
I do like puns. That is a thing you've known about me.
So we've got this EU versus NA matchup starting things off for us here. I think Bet, this obviously is like the 8th versus 9th seed. Of course, teams are seeded based on their SendouQ ladder rating. I think Bet's just one of those teams, or both these teams probably are just two of these teams that just played the ladder a bunch. They were constantly in. They were constantly queuing up. I know because I talked to Andy every once in a while. It felt like every day he was like, "Oh, I'm in a SendouQ set," or "Oh, I'm doing whatever."
From following Andy on Twitter, it was just constant SendouQ talk.
Yeah. I guess this guy's got nothing better to do in his retirement than pick up a couple friends and play SendouQ.
Worst ways to spend time. SendouQ is very fun, and it feels good to see number go up, which Bet obviously was pretty continuously seeing.
Hey, big as they say in the business, bigger number, better person. No, that's not actually true, but hey, bigger number makes people happy. Certainly the case. But I want to talk about this Prestige team a little bit, because I think this is a team that just recently kind of popped up, probably over the course of the SendouQ season, where they started playing with one another, played in SendouQ, they were like, hey, wait a minute, if we could actually make this thing a reality. And I think they started playing together a little bit more. And of course, there are a couple of players here that we know pretty well, but there's also a couple of question marks here out of Kataro and Okami. So I'm interested to see what we're going to see from the rest of this team.
Yeah, definitely. I don't know a ton about either of them either. Admittedly, when I was playing SendouQ, I didn't run into Prestige or Bet very often.
Wow.
I'm sure that's a shocking statement.
Well,
But yeah, definitely very solid teams. It is cool that Prestige did kind of form what seems like from this. I mean, we don't necessarily know what was going on behind the scenes, but definitely arose around this time.
Does appear as though... so Prestige, obviously not one European country. They're coming from a bunch of different places. Phoenix, for example, from Switzerland, I believe, and pulling out their Sendou.ink profiles, which they actually have mostly filled out.
Whoa!
We can actually see some of the weapons they end up playing. So Hypnos, of course, as this backline player. Kataro will probably end up being the cooler player for this team. We know Hypnos used to really love the bamboo, so it might not be out of the ordinary to see him go over to the pencil, but I doubt we'll see that overall. It might be composition dependent, but we'll see where that goes. And Okami will be a carbon roller player for us here, pulling that out. And so it'll be all about how well we can support this carbon roller, right? Because it can be an incredibly strong pick, but it takes a little bit of setup.
It takes a lot of setup. It takes the rest of your teammates being okay with playing with the carbon. Definitely not everyone's favorite thing, but a great carbon is a very hard force to stop, like we've seen out of Volti for multiple years at this point.
Yeah. And so, other teams to watch out for, of course. Now we've got two carbon roller teams with Alliance Rogue also playing today in Volti. So, and interestingly, both of them are European. Is there a correlation there? I don't really know.
Probably not.
Probably not. If I had a nickel for every time that there was a Carbon player that was also European in this tournament, I've had 2 nickels, which isn't a lot, but it's weird that it happened twice.
Exactly. But yeah, what I'm really wondering is if we might see anybody try to pull out any of the new kits. Like, I could definitely see squeezers coming out from anywhere here. I actually would expect chargers potentially out of both of these teams, which is exciting though.
Yeah, we'll see what comes through. I guess. Okay, is there a universe where this Snipe Rider kit gets picked?
Yeah.
Like, maybe.
No, I think there just is. It's a good kit. It's not the same kit, but it's more aggressive and allows you to be more forward with your teammates, which is fantastic for how it likes to play into just getting the pick off of somebody else looking at someone.
It's definitely true, but I'm curious to see what Hypnos is going to play here. Because again, you think of, okay, I'm playing with a Carbon Roller, so I have to set something up for this Carbon Roller, which probably means that I have to have a lot of area denial control and a decent amount of paint control. Snipe Rider, I think with this kit and the Splash Wall, you can probably get a decent chunk of the way there with the area denial.
Yeah.
Then you're kind of lacking on that paint coverage for the most part. It's not going to be as easy, right? Sure, the Snipe Rider can do a little bit of paint, but it's not going to be as easy to actually lay down that paint and fully enable that weapon. So maybe it also depends on what else we'll see come through. Or just spitballing here as we're waiting for the teams to get into lobby. For map selections today, folks, do want to give you a brief idea of how this works. The teams select their preferences heading into the tournament overall, and then an algorithm will give them map by map what they're going to play next. So the teams don't even know what the remaining maps are, but they also don't necessarily get free choice in terms of getting to choose what maps come next. It'll be Sendou himself selecting the maps via the proxy of some algorithm. We'll get into the first one here. Splat Zones on Hagglefish Market. It's Power pulling out the vanilla Snipe Rider in Hypnos on that Firefin.
Firefin, always a great weapon. We've seen Triple Strike work very well with Carbons, and we are seeing that new Squeezer kit coming out along with the new Blaster. That's very interesting to me. Splatter screen really good at obscuring people's views, both of your team and your own. So I'm a little surprised they're not running anything that's like point sensory. Versus we're seeing we're seeing Prestige here running this Sea Blaster, which has the new Splashdown kit. Special, I don't think anyone expected to see come back.
Certainly not, but hey, it's back all of the same, and we'll have to put up with it. Looks like Prestige here. We're going to take the first hold of this zone, but trades going back and forth. Might not fully stabilize things, though it looks like Hypnos is in position. Okay, no, wait a minute. Power's going to get one onto Hypnos there. And here we see the first appearance of this Splatter Cooler screen coming out. We'll see whether or not this is able to buy enough space, but actually looks like Bet just kind of coming in and ignoring this. They've got the push coming out with the Crab Tank, now the Tactical Cooler down, but they still have yet to fight back through the zone and actually get some of the picks to go back.
As you say that, they managed to find a few picks on Bet there, really starting to move forward. Being forced to jump out, having that cooler, just making that so easy for them. Carbon gets punished. And right now we're seeing Prestige in a very good situation to really get set up. They are close to that splashdown, so the Blaster might play a little forward here. Splattershot, of course, just looking around for those. I know that word. I don't right now.
Well,
Zukas. I found it.
Looking forward, can't quite find it, does get taken down, and now we see the push coming in from Bet as a result. The screen comes out, the strikes follow up, and it's at least pushed the members of Bet back, but will they be able to follow up here? Icarus on the side looking for Lucina, looks like is forced to back on away, and Bet's going to hold on to this zone at least for now, and all of the special resources out of Prestige have now gone by the wayside. Looks like Bet might be able to hold on, and as long as Power stays alive here on top of this zone, we'll probably still be able to set things up. Here comes another screen. Here comes a set of strikes out, but there's no one pushing through the zone from Prestige. Okami's trying to come through on this left side. Will call out the flank. She'll take care of that, but with 5 ticks the timer left to go here, Prestige has got to make a move. They've got to make it fast, and they've run out of time. Bet'll take game 1.
Yeah, Power was doing such a great job there of just keeping down the paint on that zone. People really underestimate the degree to which Snipe Rider paints, but that was pretty much just Power painting the zone throughout the end of that game and contesting it against all of the other players on the other team.
And what I was saying earlier about the typewriter, right? Yes, it can paint, right? And especially it's probably going to be really good at painting right by your feet, right? But when it's about trying to lay out paint for someone else to work with, it's a little awkward, right? So certainly it can paint, and especially when you're just trying to do things like paint a rectangle. As it turns out, if you're trying to paint a rectangle with a bunch of rectangles, it's actually quite effective.
It's extremely effective at zones, and zones specifically for painting, or giving general paint control to weapons like shooters or dualies, or maybe even blasters. For a carbon, I do agree. I think it would be a rough pick with a carbon.
But then again, right, we're also not seeing that same full... it feels like a lot of this, the idea is there from Prestige, especially in the last one, right? You saw the screen come out, you see the strikes come out on top of the screen trying to pick people off and generally open up that space. But I really want to try to see Okami lunge forward into all that space that's generated by those specials. If Okami gets there on top of the zone, suddenly I think there are a lot more windows of opportunity. And I can't tell right now whether it's just a little bit of mistiming or what the case is. But what I can say is that Prestige would be very happy with the next map they're on. Given this carbon roller, it is splat zones on Flounder Heights.
Well, you gotta love zones on Flounder Heights. It's been a while since I've seen it. It is, Flounder sure does force teams to play differently. It is very good at that, and it should work very well for Prestige having a carbon. I am interested in seeing how Bet adapts to it, because I don't know that Pencil would do as well here. It doesn't have a lot of spots it can really set up as much as it likes to.
Right, you figure not a lot of spots, and with one of these chargers that's got less range, it's probably more likely that if Power really wants to stick with the charger, he'll end up switching to something with a little bit longer range that can really capitalize on more of that height advantage that's prevalent in this map, especially when trying to find these kinds of lockout situations. But we'll see what this is, because okay, let's take a step back. The screen here, is it going to be useful? Because it feels like there's a lot of verticality to this map, and the screen is wide, certainly, but it's not very tall at all. So I doubt it's going to cover both the bottom portion of the map and the top portion of the map, right?
Yeah, it's not going to be able to really do both. It's not that tall. Like, we were seeing Power being able to look over it so easily, even just from the tarp on Hagglefish. So that says a lot. It's really good on really flat maps. I could see it being really good for getting your carbon in through the grates, maybe, actually. I could see that being pretty useful. Because it is big and bulky enough for that, especially if they're still running triple strike. Definitely should be able to move forward with that, especially on this map with so many more walls to play around. I do like this adjustment out of Bet. I do like seeing how their comp changed for this map. I love seeing that tactical or tri-slosher. Crab is incredible here, as we saw for many months. And Blaster is fun here. It has great lines and good vantage points. And we're seeing a very similar comp here out of Prestige as last game, except we're swapping in a ballpoint splatling, which, once again, not that surprising, because we're talking about how Chargers don't necessarily love this stage.
Not that surprising at all. And the other thing to note is that both these backliners opting for fizzy bomb weapons, right? Something to look out for is that prevalence of the fizzy bomb, one of these long-range specials that can get thrown to the opposite side of the map and try to apply just an ounce more of pressure. You're seeing here contesting over the grades as both the teams trying to throw bombs back and forth, looking for picks. Looks like Prestige or Bet is looking to try to come on through, and they will cap both of these zones first. Here comes a triple splashdown. Tripnos will find the trade at least, but I feel like that's a story that we're going to see quite a lot within the next couple of weeks here.
Yes. It definitely, everyone still remembers how to cancel splashdown. We have not forgotten how to cancel splashdown. On the other hand, there's 2 extra splashdowns now.
Certainly going to be something else. And now, look at the effectiveness of this screen, basically zoning away the crab tank, and the crab tank can't see anything from its perspective, even without having gotten the debuff from that screen. It's allowed Prestige to start coming back on through, and they're starting to find the engagements here, but Okami is not on the front lines at all. She's going to find one as she continues moving forward, and now the zone will get taken here. Still trying to lunge forward, looking for something else. But again, it's about that support from the rest of the team not really coming through. You don't feel comfortable taking this forward play on a carbon roller until you really commit for the play. We'll find one against Lucina on this blaster, but it looks like it's just going to be a trade, and Bet's still going to try to come on back and lunge for the zones.
Yeah, Bet does definitely still have a good bit of stuff to work with. They have popped 2 of their specials to work on getting in here. Lucina has a lot of paint to try and play around with, which is what you want when you're a blaster, to really be able to shark around and find those little areas. Does get hit by that tactical cooler screen, but as we can see, it's only so impactful. It is very annoying, but as long as your teams are playing different enough weapons or you remember where people were, I haven't found it to be too bad to deal with in that respect. It's more annoying when you haven't been hit by it. The 30 damage is more of a threat than the visual effect, to me, a lot of the time.
Trades here in a lot of these firefights go to the favor of Bet, which means they'll take back control of both of these zones and likely get a chance to extend their lead despite losing it there for a moment. Now it's really about whether or not they can hold this point with all of these members of Prestige coming this way and Power piloting this Tri-Slosher. Now it's going to get a second, tries to challenge for a third, but now gets approached from 2 different sides. Looks like that's going to in pretty good position to hold on. They've got to fend off a couple of resources coming in from Prestige. Here comes that screen once more. Okami's going to try to drop on Lucina. Finds one. And again though, with that pick getting taken all the way away from these zones, you're not seeing the same amount of momentum and the same amount of pace that I think Prestige would like to play with overall. Despite that, they'll still get both these zones, get the stagger onto the opponents, and now they'll be looking to try to go for a more prolonged hold if they can.
Yeah, I can see Prestige's comp be incredibly good at holding out Bet here. Bet doesn't have a lot of things they can do at range to really poke them out. They have the Crab and triple strikes, and so they're using them here to try and break back in. Crab managing to find a pick there is huge. But the weapons Prestige has should be pretty good at holding Bet out. They've got a lot of mid-range. They've got a lot of mid-range and 2 people who can just run in and hopefully have QR thanks to Tactical Lure. So they should be able to hold this pretty decently, especially with that Inkjet pick. Wow.
Well done to find that Inkjet pick. You see the cooler come through, but now here comes the splashdown, trying to hold on to this zone. Prestige will give the space, and now a jump away. Prestige will take the lead here at a close one as we wind down to the last minute of in-game time, although Prestige might be able to find the knockout right here. Lucina tries to come forward, continues chipping away at some of these members of Prestige. They'll back away, and now the staggers of the specials start to come out. Here's another crab tank from Clef. You see the strikes come out to the opposite zone, neutralizing things for a moment, and Bet's got him try to lunge forward, try to find the cap here when they still can, because now they don't have a lot of specials to their name. You see Clef come up with one. He'll be looking for another on Hypnos, and now we'll be able to find that with a burst bomb indirect thanks to the rest of the chip damage that was coming in for the rest of the team. Bet now makes a charge forward as they continue to try to find a couple more picks, staggering their opponents and maintaining advantage here.
Yeah, and we're seeing them really starting to look for their specials. They want to have that Crab online to make this hold easier. They want to have those triple strikes ready to really be able to fend off Prestige. Crab has come out to keep them off. They're going to stagger their specials to keep it going, and this should be able to do it if they play it right.
Just a couple more ticks left. Hypnos finds one, but Lucina will be able to trade out. Clef now drops onto one, prevents that carbon roller from getting in, and Bet will take game 2. So much back and forth there.
Yeah.
Not really one team was able to hold off the opponents because both the engagements from these teams were incredibly good. But at the end of the day, Bet was able to squeak it out by holding on for just a little bit longer when it mattered most.
Bet did an incredible job there at the end of special management. They did so well at making sure, like we saw that splash at the end, painting around to make sure they had that crab ready. We saw the slosher playing carefully to stay alive to make sure they had triple strikes. I believe they had been pretty consistently getting cooler up just throughout the game. Power had been doing a great job on that. And they just were playing very consistently, which is what you need to do. It's great to have a carbon pop off and find a triple. If you're not able to set that up consistently, if you're not able to get them in consistently, it's just not going to be as reliable.
Yeah, certainly the case. And although, you know, there were certainly some opportunities for Prestige to come in, and we did see some of those engagements end up working. At the end of the day, it took so many specials to actually get that carbon roller into some place that was effective. And even then, when there was an engagement, I think Bet did an awful good job of just finding more of these disengages, finding ways to make sure that even like drawing Okami down away from the bridge, right? So that they couldn't get a quick turn on someone else, and suddenly isolating that carbon roller engagement. was incredible there for Bet, and meant that Prestige, like I was commenting on in the game, couldn't actually play with the same level of pace. That carbon roller couldn't suddenly turn around and find the second or find the third. Instead, you have to swim all the way back up. That's an extra 3 or 4 seconds where you know exactly where that carbon roller is, and suddenly it's less of a surprise when it comes back up.
Yeah, people always like to forget how important it is to just draw fights away from the objective sometimes. Sometimes just having somebody go, okay, I don't have an easy way out here. I don't have an easy way to live here, but I can easily drag them away. And sometimes that's all you need to do, is just find a way to drag other players away from the objective, enough time to get your teammates set up with sub-weapons and specials so that you can even just have a free jump back in, so your death isn't even that consequential.
The other thing I'm really liking about Bet's play overall, especially as we just saw in that last clip, was Clef's play there, right?
Yes.
Which is also reminiscent of Power's play earlier. And a lot of these things are just, these players they understand their weapons, they understand the mission, they understand how they fit into the team composition overall. And as long as they've got a couple people at their backs, they're not afraid to go in, try to make a couple of plays, or in Clef's case with those burst bombs, get a little bit of extra chip damage, throw that extra bomb, drop back to somewhere safer where you're covered from enemy fire, and then you're able to come on back to rejoin the team after getting those two. A lot of fantastic play there across the board. Did feel like, though, Bet was just slightly more, had the slight edge in terms of an ability to find these engagements and things moving forward. But next up, we'll remain on Splat Zones, and now we're heading over to Scorch Gorge here, which I feel like if you're Prestige, not exactly what you want, right? I mean, Carbon Roller probably not the best thing in the world here.
It's not the worst thing. I could easily see them maybe going over to Machine like we see some Carbon players do. Volti, I'm thinking about Volti. I know of one Carbon player. Now 2.
Name 3 Carbon players.
Can I use mid-level?
Squidding Good has a Carbon player too.
That's true.
So actually, there are 3 Carbon players here, and they're all from Europe. So.
Well, Europe just wants Carbons, apparently. Good for them.
Yeah, evidently so.
But yeah, definitely a map that I could see them going over to, probably the Neo Machine kit, just to continue having that Trizooka. People still like it a lot. It's still very consistent. We're seeing a pretty similar comp coming out here from both sides. I believe we're seeing Crab from both sides even. It's been a while since I've seen that.
I mean,
I've
heard
like
people
Crab
come out
being
with double Crab.
Yeah, I don't mind Crab anymore. I don't have to see 3 of them at a time anymore, so Crab is good to me again. I'm glad I had a few months where I didn't have to look at triple Crab, though.
You got sick of eating Crab every day for breakfast, lunch, and dinner.
Yeah, I did. I really did. Playing it and commentating it, it's a lot of Crab.
It is a lot of Crab. Now it's back, though.
No, it's the right amount of Crab now. It's just a little bit.
Let's see how much further things come along. We'll see how things continue to play out here. But at the opening stage of this one, looks like Bet's going to have their control of the zone up first. Okami able to find a shark, finds one here onto Clef, and maybe will turn the tides here for Prestige as they look to try to find control of this zone. But they're not really pushing forward very much at all. Okami coming forward is going to be able to find one. Now finds a second onto Dante, and it looks like that'll be the cap here for Prestige.
Yeah, what I was about to want to say was that it seems like Lucina on that blaster has been doing a pretty good job of keeping Okami out. But the moment I said that, Okami found a way to break in, and now manages to get an incredible Zuka shot onto that Crab.
Beautifully done to find the back of that Crab. That is the vulnerable point. Now we'll get punished for sneaking a little bit too far forward. And here comes the strikes out on top of the zone from Dante in favor of Bet. 2 down now for Prestige. And it does look like the recap's going to come through. But even still, some of these members of Bet trying to do their best to test here as Lucina is still in the area. Will find one. And now is probably going to be looking to continue stabilizing things for Bet.
Yeah, it is really fun to see these blasters coming out to me. I do think the Splashdown Blaster is a neat kit. I think the amount of paint control it can do for a blaster is really interesting. And there is some advantage to point sensors, especially against comps that you know are going to be running splatter screen. You can keep an eye on people so much more easily.
Yeah, certainly, Dave. I think I assume point sensor goes through the screen, correct?
It does, yeah.
Yeah. So if you have that, right, even still, if you don't know where the enemy team is, you can still throw it over there and see whether or not you come up with anything. And that'll give you just a little bit of an idea of that intel, of that information, which is exactly the thing that the screen tries to take away from you. But now very close back and forth. Here's Lucina up in the air. Will cap the zone with a splashdown despite sacrificing his life for it. And Bet will go 2 down here to take the lead. Prestige slowly starting to come on back in, but now continues to get pushed away by things like these strikes. Dante's in position here, has bought enough time for Bet to continue contesting this zone, and Prestige just is not moving forward. Lucina back on top, finds one against Icarus here, and while Kataro's trying to zone away with this grab on this right side, it's just not enough from Prestige. They're not able to find the cap. Bet's able to hold on thanks to their stalling tactics, and now it looks like they might be able to just run away with the knockout here.
It definitely does. Lucina has Icarus in such a rough spot there, forcing them to jump out. They're going to have to just try and rush in. Bet doesn't have specials to contest that, but they know where they're going to funnel in from, and that just allows Bet to take the game. One thing I'd really like to point out there is Lucina playing around that podium in mid, just like we saw the Range Blaster do in like the opening trailer for Splatoon 3's gameplay. And that, I don't know, it felt good for a second. My brain got stuck there for a second.
Flashbacks. Ooh.
It was cool.
Deja vu.
First time we saw Squid Surge.
Yeah, that is true. Hats off to Bet there, but yeah, and I will say one of the things too, as I was noticing, Prestige didn't play very quick at all. They were very slow in terms of getting that ball rolling, getting that momentum rolling. And I think once Bet was able to realize that, especially a player like Dante that was able to sit in the zone, stall out for long enough, has the strikes, is not afraid to commit those strikes, to continue stalling out and punishing the enemy team who is very hesitant to actually run forward and actually get a play going, which admittedly is difficult on Splat Zones and Scorch Gorge in particular, because there are very few avenues to keep the pressure alive much further past the zone. But even still, right, it felt like Prestige was still stuck on their own side of the map. They didn't want to really move forward or really have even let Okame dive into the enemy's side of zone, instead playing very passively, and it was punished by members of Bet constantly keeping at least the smallest amount of pressure to the zone to make sure that Prestige couldn't find the cap, and it eventually netted them the game.
Yeah, I mean, that's what zones comes down to. You don't always need the most picks. I'm still pretty sure Bet had them. But you don't always need the most picks. You just need that pressure. If you can continuously keep people out, keep people jumping back, that accomplishes the exact same goal. And Lucina did such a good job spacing, making sure they were always within range of power on that charger to just make sure that they could continuously stay on that podium in mid and find those easy chip picks. And of course, a few directs here and there, because if you're playing Blaster, you might as well.